Hey, what's up everybody? Jay here, S3 Tint. This video was brought to you by Tint. If you are a automotive window tinter, you're just learning and you want a good quoting and booking system, go check it out. This video, I have decided randomly that I have this warranty job in. It's a 2013 Acura ILX, and this window has been giving me problems. And so I decided I'm just gonna cut this by hand. Instead of going through the plotter, the issues that I'm getting every single time I try this window, it's too short. And because it's such an old car with a ton of contamination inside these seals, in this vehicle as a whole, and the cut from the plotter is constantly too short, the edges are showing all the contamination. And so for whatever reason, I would like this to be a little bit longer on the edges. So I'm gonna cut this by hand. The reason why I'm making this video is so I can show you how I cut by hand. So first things first, stainless steel. I got my dot blade here, my red dot, stainless steel blade. Make sure it's nice and sharp. As you can see, this one is not. So let me just, nice sharp stainless steel blade. Stainless steel so that I reduced the likelihood or the amount of scratching on the glass that this does. So I have the film laid out on the bottom because I have imprints from the plotter on the film. So I'm gonna go just above that. I'm going to first cut my bottom edge with the blade. I'm only gonna take the blade out. You see that? Just that tiny little bit, not too much. Just enough to cut the film, but not enough to cut the rubber if I was to so touch it. So there we go. I kind of get that line started. When you're peeling on film, you want to peel away from your work, like the film, where the actual piece is going to be. Okay, I'm just going to throw that on the floor because I forgot to get a garbage bag, but we're going to ignore that. So now that I've cut it right to the bottom of this seal here, I'm going to now pull this puppy back and drop the whole film down just to the turn. So we have this turn here, this trim, right? Careful there. We have this trim. I'm just taking it to where the trim starts to turn. All right, so it's flat up here, and then it goes into a 90-degree turn. Right where it begins to turn is where I'm taking the film, because where that's gonna be is just below this seal, or this trim, but on the inside, probably just underneath the seal. So now, I'll bring you over here to this corner here. I'll show you how we cut this. You wanna be careful because of course, the film is up off the glass. So I'm gonna bring it up here just to release the tension. Because if I leave it down here, it creates too much tension because of the film curve, all this film, excess film up here. So you can cut this, or you can just bring it up and then you can get into this edge here where the seal is. And you see with that pressure, this now stays, well, as you can see, this stays up. If I let it go, it'll come down, and then the pressure and the resistance all stays here. If I straighten this up, and then I push in here, it's right there. And meaning that this is now flush. And again, I'm gonna take the blade and just have it just barely out. Bring it up against the seal and cut straight up. And then again, peel away. Peel away. All right, just toss that. Now, I'm gonna pull this back and I'm going to bring the film over just enough. I use the rubbers that I see, just enough to get underneath the seal here. Okay, think about that. So maybe about 1/8 of an inch. Move it over by 1/8 of an inch, and then move it over by another 1/8 of an inch. 2/8 of an inch. And the reason why I'm not adding them up is because I want you to think of them as two separate. You go over one to get underneath this seal, then you go over one more again, because when we cut the other side, we're gonna move this back over, and therefore it'll have 1/8 of an inch on this side and 1/8 of an inch on the other side. Cool? Let's do that. Move this, slide this over, and make sure you're not too up and down. If you do, double check the bottom of your seal, make sure everything is still aligned, because obviously you don't wanna have this all screwed up, if that makes any sense. So I've moved it over a little bit. I'm gonna move it over just a little bit again. Okay, and I'm gonna make sure that my bottom is still where I want it around the curve of that corner there for that trim. So now we're coming back over to this side, to the larger side, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side, okay? Blade, just a little bit out. I'm gonna lift the glass, I'm gonna lift the film. Let's go farther back here. I'm gonna lift the film up so that I can get into this edge here, and then I'll cut up. Or cut in whatever direction you want, realistically. Okay, cool. Now, take this, pull it back, that 1/8 of an inch. So now we check both sides. Now, we check that both sides are over the edges, but just by a little bit, because we don't want to have too much, to deal with too much film going in behind these seals. Just enough to get past the edges, cool? And so for me, this is good. This is extremely good. So we'll see, not to toot my own horn there, but it's good. Now, the film is in place, it's where I want it. I'm going to tack it down because we're gonna have to go after the top. This excess film, let's just get rid of it now. Be careful not to scratch the vehicle, obviously. And let's get this car started. Okay, I'm gonna pull out the bottom here so that the bottom of the film clears the car while I roll it down so it doesn't catch. Just enough to expose the top. Hopefully the top is clear on camera. And then again, just double check to make sure that the film is where you want it to be. Before you really commit. And yes, you tacked it down. If you have to, lift it up a little bit, kind of loosen the tack a little bit, and then get it exactly where you want it before you commit to the top. Okay, now I'm gonna hit tack this top. You can have the blade as long as you want it, but don't waste your blade. So maybe give it a 2 clicks or three or so notches, maybe even 2 to 3 notches. There we go, 3 notches. Okay, and then just follow the top. Go slow. If it helps, it might help actually, for you to have a finger that's leading in front to keep the film low and in place. Okay, and I'm just gonna have my finger in front of it to keep the film intact, close to the glass. That way we have as close to the top edge as possible. Like the finish is just gonna be as close to this as possible. And then there we go. Now let's remove the film off the glass, and we are going to use the vehicle and the car to fix our edges. So I like to take the film and have it as close to the top as I can. Find a tool that has a straight-ish edge. So here we're working on this side here of the film. And I'm just gonna line up my tool. So I'm just gonna line up with this edge of the film, and then just cut that top off. Oops. Cut that side off. Boom. And then just complete that with this here. Do not, like, if your blade is not sharp, break it off, get a new one, because you don't want to be pressing hard on the glass. You just want to slide it so that all it's doing is cutting the film. So now I straighten out this part, and I nibbled a piece right at the corner so that it doesn't catch. Okay, you could round this up as well. Line up a tool with that edge and cut it. And make sure also when you are doing this, damn it, this tool is not very good to use to make straight cuts. Make sure you are at as shallow of an angle. If this is the glass, right, and this is the blade, you don't want to be square. You don't want to be, first of all, you don't want to be, sorry, not square. You don't want to be at a, 90-degree angle. You want to be as 45 or lower. I guess this is 45, so not 45, lower than 45 as much as possible so that your blade is just sliding against the surface. And so your blade has to be very sharp in order to do that without damaging or scratching the window. Again, that's why we use stainless steel to do this, so that we reduce the likelihood of damage. And if there is damage, we reduce the amount of damage. You just have to be careful. I don't miss hand cutting. It was messy. You know, you get film everywhere. And it doesn't take that much extra time, to be honest, if you know what you're doing. But there you go. We are done. The piece is completed, and now it's ready for shrinkage. So you should know the rest of this if you've been watching any of my videos. If you're new, what I'm about to do is just go through a normal process that I always go through in order to tint. You watch enough of them, you'll recognize the patterns. Tinting is extremely simple. It's simple, it's not exactly easy to do unless you've done a number of vehicles. And so usually the good tinters are professional tinters, because it does require a ton of experience in order to be good at it, but it is a very simple thing. And I'm about to go through that process. Just follow along if you're learning to tint. Okay, let's go. And I'm not gonna talk anymore, I'm done. See you later, peace out. So there you have it, how to cut a window, a roll down window by hand. Hopefully somebody out there learned something, but this is better than what the software, the plotter, had given me. And the only reason why I am this good at cutting by hand, and why I prefer sometimes, or why sometimes the hand cut or my hand cut, sometimes hand cutters are just better than the plotter. The reason why I'm at this level is because my first, I think 2,000 vehicles, even though I had the plotter, I never used it. I preferred cutting by hand. But after doing 2, 3 cars, 4 cars in a day, my arms would be tired. By the end of the day, I was exhausted. And so I started using the plotter because it saved me energy. But my hand cuts are better, so I charge more for that. But in this case, this is a warranty. Did it by hand just because the plotter just wasn't making this piece look good. And so this is a better job. Anyways, so there you go. Sometimes it's better to cut by hand than to use a plotter. But if you're new at tinting, you should start with using your hands, learning to cut by hand before you even bother with the plotter anyways. All right, guys, catch you on the next one.